from the heart of Dubai, where tomorrow is being built today, to the world. Welcome to the CTO Show with Mehmet. Here, we redefine technology and reimagine possibilities. With Mehmet, delve into the riveting realms of AI, cybersecurity, and digital technology. Experience the thrilling highs and lows of startups. Immerse yourself in the spirit of entrepreneurship and witness the future of business innovation being written in real time. Now, without further ado, let's tune in and explore the future.
Hello and welcome back to a new episode of the CTO Show with Mehmet. Today I'm very pleased. Joining me, this time not one but two guests from the US, Chad and Rob. You know, I don't like to spend time introducing people because I have a theory. No one can introduce someone else better than themselves. So, Chad and Rob, I don't know who want to start. I will keep that to you. But tell us a little bit more about you, your journey and what you're currently up to. Of course, we're going to talk about tech in real estate, which is, I'm based in Dubai, so maybe some people would be also interested because it's a hot market currently. So, without further ado, I will leave that to you guys.
Well, my name is Chad, and I am the co-founder and CEO of Swyvvl. Over the last 18 years, I've owned 3 real estate brokerages. I've trained hundreds of real estate agents, and I've helped over 1,000 clients successfully buy and sell homes on my end. My team's helped about another 1,000 clients successfully buy and sell homes. And then my traditional side of the agency, probably another 1,000 plus there. So it's my experience over the last 18 years. And I got into it just before the Great Recession hit here in the United States. But it's that experience that has served as the foundation for building Swyvvl and really building one of the first real estate platforms that is built from the ground up for real estate agents and home buyers and home sellers, rather than, in all honesty, by tech guys from the top down. So that serves as the inspiration for it. And sitting next to me is my CTO, Rob Brower.
And like you said, I'm Rob, the CTO, and I'm the tech nerd. And so I started as a tech nerd really early. I've always been an early adopter. In a past life, I worked as a coder for some major corporations, and I got tired of sitting in a cubicle just slinging code. So I went the entrepreneurial route and dipped my toe into that and then became a serial entrepreneur. But most of my time has been spent in either information technology or in the digital media space. And so that's kind of where our paths crossed.
Cool. And thank you again. It's very late at the time of this recording. It's 11 p.m. there. So thank you very much for doing it. Impressive background. And, you said, Rob, about how you crossed roads with Chad. Now, why real estate? Like, what was special about, starting in there are some verticals, I call them the hard verticals to enter from technology perspective. Like healthcare is something that always come to my mind. Real estate is another one because it's like, very old, one of the oldest businesses in the world. And, doing any, disruption there is a challenge. So, and this question for both of you, feel free who want to answer, the question first. Yeah. So
yeah, I'll start this time. I would say that I didn't have plans to get involved in real estate. I didn't have plans to become a PropTech CTO. But what happened was Chad came to me as a client first. That was our first relationship. And he said, basically, I have this idea for a website that I want to build. And after we signed some NDAs and whatnot, he shared the idea with me. And a lot of people don't know this, but we actually built a first version of the website for him. And it wasn't branded Swyvvl back then. It was a different name. I was not a co-founder, but I love the simplicity of his idea. And so after we had spent years working together on the previous version, there came a moment where we were able to talk frankly and honestly and just talk about the idea of, hey, listen, I really think if this thing's going to fly, it needs a rebrand. And so we sat down, we had that conversation, and I shared with him that I really believed in the simplicity of his idea. And actually, I mean, I don't know if this is smart business acumen or not, but I went from getting paid to develop a website for him to basically buying into the company and becoming a co-founder.
There is my genius.
It is genius, right? And so he got himself a co-founder and a CTO, and man, we just went from there. It was really interesting, and we learned a lot of lessons along the way.
Well, I mean, when you're a startup, of course, resources are thin, right? I mean, there's not
Right.
enough time, there's not enough money, and there's not enough people. That's just how it goes. And you have to be able to bring on people who believe in your idea because you're not getting paid. You're not getting, and that's with like any business, right? Whether you're doing a local real estate brokerage or if you're running a convenience store or whatever you're doing, you're not going to get paid. You're the last person who gets paid. You know, I tell a story of when I was, growing my real estate brokerage. I had went through a divorce and I could not afford to pay my personal bills while keeping the business open as I was just starting to grow it. So at that time, I had to make a decision. I was like, okay, or what are you going to do? Which one are you going to give up? You can give up the business or you can give up your personal life. So what I did is basically I lived out of my car and I lived out of my office in order to be able to provide that year or two that was really needed to have that income to be able to keep the business open, because I knew it was going to be forever, but I knew that if I walked away from the business, that would be forever. So I had to make that sacrifice of, quote unquote, being homeless to be able to have that drive and determination, the resources to build my real estate brokerage. So I knew that when I was bringing on and starting this PropTech startup, that I had to have people that believed in me and believed in the idea a lot more than, hey, I'm just there for stock options or I'm just there for the pay, because guess what? Those things are thin and they're also very fleeting, especially at the very beginning. So it was a blessing to be able to bring Rob on and to be able to say, hey, here's my ideas. You bring them to life. Because my background, of course, is not majorly technology on that side of things. So he gets all of my demands. And then he tells me, number one, whether it's doable is the first question. And number two, is it doable in the time frame that I want it done in with all of it? And those are the two questions that come out of my mouth with everything I'd like him to do.
And I'm sure when he asks you, what do you want, that you tell him yesterday.
Absolutely.
Yes. It's never
Absolutely.
right. It's never fast enough. And we have this list, right? Just like everyone else, but we have this list of about 50 things that we want to do
Of course.
as the platform grows, as we get more resources, as the investment grows, the traction grows. We have this list of all these things that we wish we could have done yesterday, going into version 2.0, et cetera. But, you have to have that patience and that grind as you move forward.
I love hearing these stories, because it inspires other people who comes from any sector, any vertical they are in, to think how we can change things for the better, of course.
Yeah.
Like you start from a pain point, and I always repeat this on the podcast when I talk to any founder or founders like yourself, gents. Now, I'm interested to know the pain. I mean, the problem that you have spotted, and maybe this is for you, Shad, more first, and then I would hear Rob's opinion on this. What was wrong? I mean, maybe it's still wrong, and sometimes this happens also. Very rare people can spot that this can be done in a better way, because if you ask anyone, uh, I found people doing it this way, so why I need to change? But
Yeah.
for you, there must be something like you said, no, man, like this can be done in a better way. What was that?
Well, and I think this is where the benefit comes from with us, is that I've worked, on the retail level. I've worked on the customer level of things. So I look at real estate from that viewpoint of a real estate agent, of a home buyer, home seller, while people who are running these, these big tech platforms that are real estate platforms like Redfin, Realtor, and Zillow don't. They've never had to take a client lead that's coming from their platform. They've never had to do all the nurturing, the developing of the relationship, the going out and showing homes, the having contracts fall through, finally getting through inspection, appraisal, et cetera, and maybe 3, 6 months, or even 3 years later, finally get a check. So they don't look at the process from the same viewpoint and perception that I do. So, all these platforms really came into play just as I was beginning my real estate career. So I started in 2007 in the United States, and much of the world, we knew the Great Recession hit for a
Right.
lot of different countries, right? banks were looking at failing and everyone didn't know what the heck was going on. We had foreclosure rates that were just through the roof. Equity on homes was dropping by like 40-50% over basically a year and a half time period. So all these things were occurring, but as these things were occurring, there were platforms like Trulia and Zillow and Redfin that were just starting. So I grew up with them. In my real estate career, I grew up with them. And they initially provided, this service of bringing everything into a centralized location as far as all the home search and all the home information, where a home buyer, home seller could get onto the platform, but also where they could find, a real estate agent. So I joined as one of their, premier referred real estate agents. So I would get clients that would be referred to me by,
Mhm.
for example, like Truly or Zillow. And then I would go work with this client, this home buyer, home seller. And then once I closed on a house, I then paid like Truly or Redfin or Zillow, I pay them a referral fee of 30, 40, 50% of their total commission or more. And as I
Wow.
did this over and over again, I would look at my clients and I would say, number one, they don't know this is happening. They don't know that I'm paying this referral fee back to these middlemen. They have no idea that it's occurring and I can't tell them. Number two, even though it's their business that's being sold, they don't get a share in any of that money. That didn't seem
Mhm.
right. And then also number three, I knew that these exorbitant marketing and client referral fees were serving to artificially increase the cost of buying or selling a home. And of course, who are those costs passed on to? They're passed on to home buyers and home sellers. And in the United States, we just hit the tipping point where the average salary will no longer allow someone to buy the average house in the United States. So we're
Mhm.
really creating this economy of haves and have-nots. And as this has occurred over the last 14 years, 15 years since these platforms have been in play, I'm like, there's got to be a better way. We're already spending these billions of dollars, and between these, kind of the 4 or 5 major platforms in the United States, there's over probably about $10 billion a year that's going out that they're collecting. And I'm like, okay, how do we give this money back to real estate agents and home buyers and home sellers so they can decide what to do with it? There has to be a way to be able to do that connection and give that money back to the players in the industry and to be able to change the cost of buying a home rather than giving it to a middleman like Truly or Redfin or Zillow. And then that money just goes away and you see nothing of it. So we developed Swyvvl, and Swyvvl allows home buyers and home sellers to come onto the platform and create what's called a client profile. That client
Mhm.
profile, they declare what type of home they're looking to purchase or what type of home they're looking to sell. And then real estate agents who are members of Swyvvl are able to see those client profiles, and then they're able to compete against each other by declaring how much of the commission that they're going to make that they're willing to share with the home buyer, home seller upon the successful closing of a home. And then at the end of that time period, what we call a share experience, the real estate agent who has agreed to share the largest percentage of the commission with the home buyer, home seller secures that individual as their client moving forward. And then upon the successful closing of a home, they then provide that commission share with the home buyer, home seller, and the home buyer, home seller now gets to use that for their down payments, their closing costs, their move-in expenses, appraisals, inspections, the myriad of things that come along with buying a house. So it makes the home buyer and home selling process more equitable and puts that dream within reach of more of home buyers and home sellers than the current process that we have. And I know I'm going long-winded, but this is the other thing that people don't know about in the United States is that over the last 20 years, I've watched the industry really get absorbed by about 4 or 5 players. And what people don't know is that the majority of the franchises that we have here on the real estate brokerage side, they're all owned by the same like 2 or 3 companies. They
Mhm.
don't know that Zillow owns Trulia. They don't know that Redfin was just bought by Rocket Homes for over $1.75 billion. They don't know that Mr. Cooper, which is one of the biggest loan companies in the United States, was just bought by Rocket Homes. So there's very, very little actual choice. There is the illusion of choice, but that has been taken away from our industry. And we want to put that back in because without competition, nothing changes.
I have follow-up questions, but before doing so, because it's very interesting, I want to ask Rob from technology perspective, what kind of challenges? Because if I want to break down what Chad just mentioned, maybe at the beginning it looks easy, but there are a lot of moving points in that.
Yeah.
Uh, I'm interested to know how you broke down. So, because you mentioned like when you first met, you did just as a website, and
Yeah.
then the idea developed further and became what Swyvvl is today. So, how? Like, how hard was it to translate this into kind of tech stack that you need to build this business model?
You are asking the right questions.
Easy, right?
From
Simple.
Chad's point of view, he says, "Hey, I want a website that does this," and so we sit down. I talk with my developer, and we start planning out the website. Now, Chad had already kind of envisioned what he wanted it to look like, so we weren't doing a lot of UI UX design. We were really just providing the back end. So we figured out what type of tech stack are we going to need. And at first, it was kind of simple. I mean, the first iteration of the site was simply it had to have a basically a membership application where people could come in and create their accounts, and then from there they would be able to see what client profiles were existing, what types of homes were people looking to buy or sell. Buyers and sellers had to be able to come in and create their account, and then basically say, hey, this is what I'm looking to buy, this is what I'm looking to sell, or where. But one of the first challenges was I'm not a real estate guy. And so we started building the product, and then we would get new information from Chad. We would get to a point where we would ask a question, a very simple question like, hey, wait a minute, how do we do this? And he goes, oh, yeah, in real estate. And he'd give us the answer, and we're like, oh, crap. The way that we're designing it, that's not going to work. We also came up against some limitations because there were some states in which we were not allowed to share any of the commission back with the client. But in the middle of all this, the next big challenge that we hit, potential challenge, was the big NAR ruling. Because Chad started explaining to me like what the coupled commissions and decoupling commissions look like, and then I was like, are we gonna have to just start accounting for all of this stuff? And and there was a moment, it was kind of hairy, right, where we thought, depending on how this NAR ruling goes, man, this could be the end of us. But man, by the grace of God, it went our way, because here in Washington, and Chad can speak more to that, we were already doing commissions decoupled the way that NAR was saying, hey, this is how we have to do it moving forward. And so that helped us out. But then we would have these conversations, and we would feel like we're getting about 80% done with our build. And we had one conversation where I asked a stupid question. I said, hey, Chad, so basically people are going to have a house that they want to buy, but where are they going to find that house? They're going to go to like our competitor, like Zillow, and do a home search. And then they're going to come back here, and then the agents are going to bid on how much commission they're going to get. Why wouldn't they just stay on Zillow if they're on Zillow? And he was like, you're right. We have to add a home search portal to our website. And I was like, oh yeah, that's easy. I've never done that before, but I started looking into it, and oh my gosh, if you've never added an IDX feed to a website, oh man, it completely changed everything.
Well, one that's national too, because how it works in the United States here, local MLSs control the information. So there's over 600 MLSs in the United States. So to be able to access a nationwide home search, I mean, there's really, in the United States, there's probably maybe a handful or two handfuls of independent third-party nationwide real estate platforms. And there's a reason for that, because it's virtually impossible to be able to get access to a nationwide information stream, right? To be able to put those 600 plus MLSs together. So here we're sitting here as a challenge, and there's a reason why we didn't include it in the first iteration of the platform, was because I knew how hard it was and how difficult it was. And I knew also how expensive it was, for a startup with limited resources, limited funds, limited developing, etc. But we did manage to push through with all of it. We did manage to partner with someone who then was able to give us access to that nationwide stream. So we now have a nationwide platform that has as many homes and has much information or more than any of our competitors have. And we were able to add that aspect to really, bring us up from a second or third tier real estate web platform to a top tier real estate platform.
But I got to tell you, Mehmet, that just getting to the data that we have now, there was an intermediate step that made us change our tech stack twice, right? So the only other way to get it is to go to the people that have the data, and they have what's called syndication. And so with syndication, they have access to the data, but each of the groups of MLSs get to vote whether they want to let you have it or not. So unfortunately, our rollout plan had to change because one of the groups said, no, we don't want to give them our our MLS info. We're like, what the heck? Like we meet all the criteria. They just, I don't know if they were being influenced by some of the competitors or what, but they said no. But luckily, Chad being the real estate guru and knowing real estate contracts, he got us an out. And he basically said, okay, give us 90 days and let us play with the data. We had to hire a new guy to the tech team because the way the syndication does it is they hold all the data and you have to pull it from them and store it. So then I was like, well, now we got it. We're talking about Azure servers and things like that. And so we had to hire an Azure developer. And so that increased the cost. So now we're paying for all this expensive data, this Azure developer. We have to pull the data twice a day, and it's not fast. And then I'm asking questions like, hey, wait a minute, what's up with all the photos? He says, well, we have to pull all the photo data and we have to pull it twice because we have a low res photo for display. And then when they click into it, we have a higher res one. And I'm like, are you sure we can't just get that on demand? I said, with everybody with high speed internet these days, we should be able to pull those photos on demand. Come on, man. He goes, no, according to the contract, they say you have to pull the entire database, store it, and then update it twice a day. And it was just crazy. Well, luckily, we went to one of the conventions in Las Vegas, and it was just very serendipitous. We met the CEO of a data provider, and he said, "Hey, I think we should work together." And you know how it is when you meet some guy at a trade show, you're like, yeah, whatever. I'll be kind and I'll listen to the spiel. As a matter of fact, at first, Chad was supposed to be meeting with a VC, and this guy was at our booth, and he was like, "Hey, Rob, go talk to this guy. like get him out of here."
He was so blocking me. I was like, I do not have time to talk with this guy. He needs to go away. I'm trying to secure funding. Just I was like, Rob, just take him. Just get him.
But to be
out of
fair,
my
we did
face.
have a lot of tire kickers that were coming over and just asking us a bunch of questions because it's new. They had never heard of it. And they're like, wait a minute. So what are you guys doing and how are you doing it?
Yeah.
So I started
can
talking to
relate.
this guy. Yeah. And turns out he's the CEO of a data company. And he goes, yeah, we're working with nationwide MLS data. And I think we should work together because I can get you that same data faster and cheaper. And I was like, that's worth a conversation. So it turned out it was the best connection that we could have made. I mean, it was amazing.
Definitely. You know, I tell my agents, even as they're building their businesses, I said, hey, you can work hard, you can grind. That's the part you have to put into it. But every business, when it's successful, has to have a little bit of luck. You know, and you can position yourself to get a greater chance of getting that lucky break. But you have to have a little bit of luck. Like, for example, when I was starting in real estate, I was about 6 months into it. I hadn't sold anything, but the market was tanking, foreclosures were happening. And I just said, hey, who has all the properties? I'm like, it's banks. So I started going after financial institutions and just calling them up, and I would call them up. I called them up for months, and I just heard no and no and no and no. And finally, I called the same number that I've been calling for months, and a new girl was on the other end of the line. She had just gotten switched over, and she's like, hey, you know, what area do you cover? I'm like, I cover Seattle. And she's like, well, I got 6 homes that we need to have managed and marketed and sold. She goes, you know what you're doing? And I lied, and I said, yep, I know exactly what I'm doing. And then I literally went from not selling anything to selling 20, 30 homes every month. And that was my lucky break. But behind that lucky break was the grind, right? It was the grind of identifying your plan, working your plan, and then going out there and meeting people and developing those relationships. And it's no different, even though it's on a bigger scale, you know, doing a PropTech startup, it's still the same basics that you learn.
Absolutely. A lot of things on the technical side, Rob, which I can relate to. Maybe many people, they don't know this, but around like maybe 10 years ago, I was doing some freelance work. So one guy came to me and he said, so we have like specific portals, they call them the CRMs, which is the similar to the MLS what you have there. So he said, I want to build a website that pulls the same information that I put into the CRM there. And I was asking him why. He explained something to me. I'm not a property guy. I said, okay, whatever you want, because he wanted to do kind of customization, which the portals usually they don't allow you to. And one part of, you know, the thing that was challenging for me is pulling the data, and especially the images, because the images that are the ones that takes most of the time, because they are like, especially like if they are high quality or something like this. And yeah, like he was telling me why it's slow. I said, yeah, it can be faster than the line between your CRM provider and this hosting. Don't laugh at me. I hosted that as a WordPress plugin for him at that time.
Even I know what that is.
Hey, you got to do what you got to do, brother.
Yeah, and this is the first time I saw, like, because the plugin is, of course, like, someone in the US developed it, so he had the words MLS and all these things. I was like, what the heck is this? I had never seen these terms before, and I had to go and learn a lot of things. So yeah, I
Yeah.
can relate. Now I want to ask something, to both of you, but maybe Chad, you can highlight this more. When you were explaining the business model, so I think maybe as one of the showstoppers, let's call it this way, is if I am an agent, you're taking me from my day-to-day routine, going to these other platforms and bringing me to your platforms. And maybe they would tell you, hey, like, how do we know that we have someone who would be able to match with? Um, because any marketplace have this challenge, like,
Yeah.
who's first. So how was your trick to solve this out?
Well, this is the thing. And when Rob talks about it, and it was very interesting, is education and educating home buyers and home sellers and even real estate agents how the industry works, especially when, for example, a home buyer, home seller may buy a house once or twice in their lifetime. And that is really the biggest hurdle and the biggest challenge. As you said, hey, there's this way of doing things. People understand truly in Redfin and Zillow, and they understand this process with all of that, but they don't understand what's going on behind the scenes. So it's really this education process of where I had to educate Rob about how real estate works and how we're solving things. And it's the same with real estate agents on their end. But I'll say this: 87% of all real estate agents in the United States are out of the business in less than 5 years. So that's pretty darn close to 100%, right? We know that over 50% of our real estate agents don't do a deal in a year. That means they don't close one contract. And we also know that on average, a real estate agent will close anywhere between about 4 to 5 deals in a year. That's just such a minute amount, right? So the vast majority of real estate agents are not doing very much. So we teach our real estate agents within my brokerage is that you have to have multiple streams of client sources feeding into your business on that side. So real estate agents actually are very open to the fact of bringing in more business and more streams of clients into their businesses. So they are very open to trying things. That's not against it. But what they really want to know is they want to say, hey, this money that I'm already going to invest in client acquisition costs, can I have a better way of getting more control over how that money is used? And number two, outside of what we charge on our monthly membership fee at Swyvvl, agents don't pay that agreed amount they've agreed to share with the home buyer or home seller until they successfully close on a home. So that means instead of paying a lot of money up front, for example, for Truly or Zillow, you may pay $72,000 a year to get anywhere between about 80 to about 100 client leads. Most of those client leads won't turn out because we have a conversion ratio of about 1 to 3%. The numbers don't match. So it's very important on my end that we said, hey, outside of that initial small investment, we want to make sure that real estate agents don't have to pay a more significant amount until they're successful. That means the money's already in the account. They're not fronting that money with no guarantee of a return. So we wanted to put as many things in play and put them in favor of the real estate agents in order to encourage them to be able to come over to our platform. But like you said, it is the biggest challenge with any business is educating your clientele. And in our business, our clientele are home buyers, they're home sellers, and they're real estate agents.
And this question for both of you from scaling the business perspective. So maybe I will start with the tech stack first, Rob. Um, I'm sure, and you mentioned like you had to change things down the road and all this, but uh, how also like these new tech stacks play their role in accelerating, for example, adoption of some features that chat came and said, hey, like we want to do this. So I'm not sure like also like how much AI is being used, in the tech stack today, and what role it can play, because I'm pretty much against of using AI for the sake of using it. I'm
Yeah,
more interested
amen.
to know I'm more interested to understand like how AI solved a problem, or let's say streamlined any operation related to the tech stack and to the business, of course.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm 50 years old now, so I was half my age when I was a professional coder. And so a lot of the technologies have changed. Now, the basic coding principles have not changed. And so what's been interesting is AI has actually helped us to solve some of the unknowns. For example, in our tech stack, we've got, 4 or 5 different pieces of technology that have to talk to each other. And so I will talk to my developer and say, "Hey, listen, this is what we got to do. We've got to make this talk to this, and we've got to get this information across." And he'd say, "I've never done that before." And I said, "Well, figure it out." So he actually went to some of the different coding AIs and basically said, "Here's my problem. I've got to make this talk to this, and I've got to make this API key work over here, and it's not receiving the data." And it actually several times came back with, well, the level of encryption is mismatched. And so it's not going to be able to talk. You have to get them both on the same level of encryption. And it was like, oh, yeah, that's pretty simple. We can do that. And so the things that we didn't know, AI was able to help us out. But no, we're not putting AI in the software itself just for doing it. In this first iteration, in our final beta release, we actually don't have AI intrinsically built into the software, but we do have plans for using AI as we move forward. And I don't want to give away all the R&D and the plans so that competitors can get the jump on us. But I will say that, yeah, we are in the same frame of mind as you. We don't want to just throw AI in to have AI in there. But the question that we're asking, we're going back to basics. What is a pain point that AI can help us make our software better for the user's experience, either a buyer seller or the real estate agents? And then we also have a third level that we haven't even talked about yet, but we also have lenders on our platform that are members of
Mm.
Swyvvl. And so what that allows us to do is basically when a home buyer or seller comes onto our platform and let's say they've never bought a home before, it's kind of a scary process and it's a big deal. So what this allows them to do is fill out their profile. And as they fill out their client profile, it basically says, "Hey, are you pre-approved?" If they are not pre-approved for a loan, then their information gets sent to one of our lender partners if they request it, and they start reaching out to them and holding their hand through that entire loan process. And so the cool thing is that once the agents have interacted with them, then they already know that, hey, these guys are good to go. They've got their pre-approvals down. We know exactly the price range that they're qualified for, and so it takes the guesswork out of it. The home buyer and seller doesn't have to leave the platform and go somewhere else. But we keep asking the question, how can we make this experience better for the home buyer or seller or for the agent? And we just keep pushing forward from there. And so the technology on the back end, I mean, I wish I had a team of 20 developers that I could just say, "Hey, do this," and they can make it happen. But the truth is we have to spend a lot of time prioritizing. So we've got this, like Chad said, this checklist of features that we want to incorporate, and we've got some that are we've definitely marked, "Hey, this is for 2.0 and beyond." And some of them are being rolled into what we're calling, 1.5. And so with 1.5, we're strengthening up the back end and making the dashboards more robust for the real estate agents. And we've got some other ideas that we're bringing into the property details pages to make it a better experience for people that are doing a home search.
Mhm.
But yeah, definitely we're very interested in not only what AI can do, but using blockchain technology as we move forward to version 2.0. As you know, smart contracts are
Yep.
becoming a huge thing, and I'm really interested also in you know, uh, using the blockchain for identification purposes, because if somebody has a secure ID, then they don't have to enter all that information or worry about it getting lost or hacked or whatever. And that
Right.
also helps us out because then we don't have to store as much data on our servers or anything like that. And it makes me feel a lot better knowing that that information is safe and secure, because that's part of the reason why we started Swyvvl in the first place.
I'll say I agree with you fully.
Mhm.
At a certain point, I think AI and their usage or the word of AI, I think
Mhm.
people just throw it around. I got to be honest with you. It's we've already seen several AI companies, right, be very successful, but we've also seen a lot of them already go under, right? Huge VCs of 100 million, 200 million, and they're gone. And I think that you have to use it very strategically. And I think the two things that it's worked for us, and I'm not going to give out too much, but number one, it allows developers, allows startups to be able to do more than they could have done 5-10 years ago. Like Rob said, it allows us to solve problems with the building of our platform that we wouldn't be able to solve without having, a development team of 20-30 people. Number one, it allows us to identify the problem, then it gives us the easy answer of, hey, here's how you fix it, here's how you add it, here's how you take care of it. So it really is a force multiplier, number one. But number two, on the retail end of things, this is the problem that we run into as real estate agents. You will get a home buyer or home seller, a home buyer who will tell you, hey, guess what? This is what I want in a home. I want this many bedrooms, and I want, this big of a lot, and I want to be this, close to water, etc. I had a client who told me, hey, here's my specifics of what I want for a home, and I have to have a lot that either has a pond or a lake that runs through it or a river, because I want to be near the water. I want to be able to have water. So I spent 6 months looking for this property for them. And at the end of the day, they ended up buying a property that was exactly opposite of what they had asked me for. It was not the same in bedrooms. It was not within 10 miles of water that they said was a non-negotiable for them. And that's when I realized is that we as human beings have the logical mind, and then we have the emotional mind. And the problem with real estate websites right now is they only allow input from the logical mind. It's the buyer looking there and saying, hey, this is the area I'm looking in. This is the type of home I think I want. But the reality is it doesn't take into play their emotional responses with things. So we want to incorporate AI into our platform of saying this, okay, we already know the logical inputs that are occurring. How do we incorporate the emotional inputs that the individual probably cognitively is not realizing is coming into play whatsoever? So for example, we may be looking at kitchens, and they may really be liking kitchens that have dark granite or dark quartz, but they don't even realize they're doing that. By AI analyzing their search criteria and saying, hey, they're spending a lot more time looking at these kitchens that have Viking appliances in them. They're really looking at a lot more of them that have gas appliances sitting in there, or they're really looking at this that has this aspect of an eating bar. Whatever it is they're doing their search of AI, identifying these emotional touch points that are not going into the logical mind, and then putting those properties in front of the home buyer, so that instead of waiting 6 months and trying to figure out what our clients actually want and waste time for the real estate agent, but also for the home buyer, that AI is able to learn what the emotional inputs are as that person is searching for homes, and then put those properties in front of them in a much faster fashion.
Yeah.
It's like accelerating the whole cycle.
Yeah, 100%. So that's just an example of AI being useful versus just throwing AI in there to say, hey, we got AI on our platform, and great.
Yeah.
We want to make sure that it really is able to add an aspect that logically cannot be added into that home. Because as we know, a home buying thing is, while it's really logical of, hey, here's my down payment, and here's where I want to live, and here's where, my time frame to move in, it's really an emotional decision.
Yeah.
Connecting with that house. We know that when someone goes in a house, that within probably the first 20 seconds, they decide whether they like it or not. We need to add that element into the platform in order for that home search to be able to be more efficient.
And of course, Mehmet, you realize that on the back end, this is going to require us to use fuzzy logic and develop subsets of data for the pre-existing data that's coming across our data feeds. For example, the finite things that we're talking about picking out from the imagery or whatever, that data doesn't exist. Like, you don't go to the MLS listing and it doesn't say, oh, by the way, this is this color quartz versus this color quartz, right? A window facing a southern exposure versus a northern exposure. And so what we have to do is develop a way to take the existing data, marry it with this new data that the AI will be coming up with. And then who knows, we may even create the new standard for MLS data moving forward.
Why not? Question to you, Chad, regarding scaling this time from business perspective and your value proposition. Although, like, I don't live in the US, but I have a lot of friends, and I used to be surprised about the costs before even finishing the deal, right? So
Yeah.
so have you figured out, you know you said, like, now you have subscription, you have kind of sharing model also as well. Is this enough on the long run, or do you feel that you need to have like some additional revenue streams into the business. For example, now Rob just get the idea of providing the data, let's say, right? So another one might be, utilizing some kind of technology, which again, Rob, you mentioned about the blockchain. So are you seeing, additional possibilities to scale the business outside just these two, business models that you have today?
Yeah, exactly. Because like right now, in version 1.0, we have basically three revenue streams that are coming into the business. We have the subscription memberships that are coming from real estate agents. We have through share, there are share experiences. We have that instant agent connect product that also brings in additional revenue. And then we have the instant lender connect that brings in revenue. But the reality is that building out our ecosystem, there are going to be and probably even more significant forms of revenue, such as bringing in the blockchain on that end of things, bringing in the crypto for the payments. We have things with lenders where nationwide mortgage companies would like to partner with us because they recognize that being able to have control or be able to have a significant say or partnership with a major third-party nationwide real estate website is invaluable. Like I talked about earlier, Redfin was just acquired by Rocket Homes. Well, Redfin has, and they were acquired for just under $2 billion. Now, Redfin has never actually turned a profit in the lifetime of their company. So, I just want to let that sink in. They've never actually turned a profit in the lifetime of their company. Yet they're acquired for almost $2 billion. And the reason why is that a mortgage company such as Rocket has decided that in order to maintain their market share and also grow their market share, they need to have access to all these home buyers and home sellers and also the real estate agents that are using these platforms with all of it. So yeah, our revenue stream, as far as our model, this is what we're starting out with. And you have to start like relatively small. You have
Right.
to, even though we're a nationwide, and you're right, the United States is huge, right? I mean, it's massive. There's millions of real estate agents. There's hundreds of millions of people over, I mean, just coast to coast, it's like, 3,000 plus miles,
Right.
with it. So when you're starting to come, even though we're a nationwide real estate site, as far as our marketing, and our marketing has to be that educational aspect, like we said, really
Absolutely.
letting people know of this is how the market works. Like I had to teach Rob, right? And then also saying, hey, here's how we're different than what's going on. And I also had to teach Rob that, but it was very eye opening because the things that I think are normal and understandable are not normal and understandable. So we've had to learn how to deliver our message to people, but we've also had to learn that, hey, you have to start, even though we're a nationwide site, we have to start basically regional and then start expanding our reach as the resources and stuff come in.
Do you see, of course, not maybe now, but in the future, expansion to some adjacent areas like rentals, for example?
Yeah, we've seen things, everything from commercial, because on the commercial side of things,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, for to be to the rental side, we've also determined as far as being able to expand just internationally. While every country has a different way of handling real
True.
estate, we've already been contacted, from people in Australia, Canada, etc., even the UK, as far as, hey, how can we adapt Swyvvl in order to be able to fit our current market and how things are done that way. So there's not just the national side of things. We have the ability to be able to expand Swyvvl to many international countries and just adapt it to how those real estate, how their real estate systems work. But let's be honest, there's weaknesses in all of them, right? There's definitely ways to improve every single one of them, and Swyvvl can be that instrument moving forward with that.
That's look very promising. Now, I want to ask Rob again because you mentioned blockchain, and I want to have your opinion on this. There's something that's happening currently in Dubai, and because blockchain is, you know, on the rise, right? And I know also in the States, don't get me wrong. So we started to see, tokenization, what they call it, like real world asset tokenization. Um, in general, being now in prop tech, whether you whether you like it or not, I'm sure you like it. Just joking. Um, so being in prop tech, are you seeing signals in the US of adapting this, to this new norm of everything gonna be like tokenized, like even like the home ownership would be tokenized? Because I think this is will be part of what Chad was explaining about the whole cycle from the moment I decide that I want to buy a home till I go and finish the deeds and I get the keys in my hand. Because there are like a lot of, I would say, like, I'll not call them obstacles, but moving parts, let's call them this way.
Mhm.
Uh, so are you seeing the, or do you expect these to be also like playing role in the property market in general from technology perspective?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of advancement happening in the technologies. I think one of the things, though, that we've got to be very careful of is putting all of our eggs in one basket, no matter what that is, because we do run up against hurdles here, and even the government. And if they come down and they start making mandates and changing laws now, like we saw with the potential of that NAR ruling, it has the potential to completely derail us. And so, one of the things that we want to be careful to do is to not put everything and depend on a specific technology. And so we're constantly asking questions like, okay, Chad says, hey, I think we should move in this direction or look at doing this. And we say, okay, like he said, uh, is it possible to do right now with the technology that we have? And if not, what technologies do we have to introduce? And then we have to start going down this rabbit trail of researching, well, what are the real pros and cons of that? And not just for the immediate, but for the long term. And so, even though we're developing right now, we got to start looking at this technology and say, okay, is this technology proven? Is it safe? Is it a true benefit? And we don't want to just jump on something because it's a buzzword. We don't want to say,
Right.
oh, let's incorporate that because I heard these guys over here in this tech space are doing it. Well, that tech space and our tech space operate very differently. And so we want to be careful that we don't jump into something that gets overly regulated and then we have to then completely change how we're doing things again. But I think one of the safe bets for us is we don't want to be a one trick pony in this space. We realize that there are a lot of pain points in the real estate industry. And I think there's a huge marketplace out there for us to develop not only Swivel even further using current and future technologies, but to also look at ancillary products that we can introduce alongside Swivel that can help real estate agents, home buyers, and sellers in different markets as well.
Cool. Chad, question for you, because you mentioned about, you mentioned the word investors multiple times. How investors in the US looks at PropTech currently?
You know, it's there's a lot of good opportunities on there, but we have found out on our end of things because we're basically in our seed round, right? We've released our beta version with it. We're gaining traction. We actually have, we actually have, income coming in from the thing, but it takes time for things to grow. And I'll be honest, we have continuing relationship with a bunch of VCs and companies that are like, hey, when you're ready for the 20, 50, 100 million, we're ready to jump in. But that seed round is always a difficult round. We've self-funded Swyvvl. I've been fortunate enough that the brokerage has made enough money to be able to self-fund Swyvvl up to this point. But like I said, that they're very open to it. And one of our big things, like I said, is really partnering with, nationwide lenders on that side. But we're also looking in preliminary discussions with some nationwide brokerages, and I won't say their names, but they are interested in being able to partner with us and to play a major role and have influence with it so that they can benefit not only their franchises, okay, on that side, but also to be able to have another platform where we're able to do things like we talked about using crypto, blockchain, et cetera, to be able to close deals. That's a whole new way of doing things. But we have the ability to be able to do that because of the stage that we're in. We're able to incorporate something like that as we grow forward with that input from them.
Got it. As you are almost coming to the end, just final thing from you both, and of course, I'm expecting Chad to talk about the business side and Europe about the technology side. I like to take your advice for fellow entrepreneurs in the prop tech space. We have a lot of ambitious, entrepreneurs in this part of the world because the property market is booming. Maybe you follow the news.
Yeah.
Um, but of course they have their own other problems, let's call them, or hassles. But in general, to be in this business, what they should know ahead to be successful.
I it's we run into it with real estate agents on a much smaller microcosm, right? Where it's like, oh, just work part-time and you're gonna make, this great salary and you'll be able to have control over your day and you have all this flexibility, etc. You know, all that stuff comes later, regardless of the business you're in, but especially on the prop tech side of things. It's a wonderful business to be in, but you better be ready to grind. You better be ready to be hungry, and you also better be able to basically, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day as you're building things. And there's no guarantees whatsoever. So you better love what you're doing. I talked about at the very beginning that, especially with a startup, how important it is bringing people on who believe in what you're doing versus, hey, what am I getting out of this situation? What am I getting out of being part of this company? And that's why I've been very fortunate to be able to bring people onto this company who believe in what we're doing, because the rewards are not going to be financial for many, many years, right? It's the rewards is, hey, watching your baby grow, the changes that occur, every small success that you have, whether it's being able to successfully put an IDX feed in, whether it's your first real estate agent who signs up on your platform, your first home buyer or home seller that uses your platform, all watching your metrics go up month after month after month. Those are your successes, right? So you have to have somebody that is really, really driven on those aspects of things in order to bring them on and be a part of it.
Rob?
Yeah, I would say for people on the tech side, there's no room for egos. You got to leave your ego at the door. What happens with a lot of coders, and you may have experienced this yourself, is when you come up with a solution, you're so dead set on this is the right solution, and you start getting this mindset like this is the only solution. And so you run across a roadblock. And rather than question the solution, you go, how do I make my solution work? And then you keep changing things and changing things to make that solution work. But sometimes you got to stop and ask the question, is that even the right solution anymore? Because as we had to change tech stacks, we found that and we had to learn things the hard way. We coded up a back end, and then Chad says, hey, listen, I want the ability to do this. And we go, okay, we've got to integrate a third party software. And now, as we're integrating that third party software, we realize, oh man, the way that we wrote all of our variables, we have to change everything because this one is case sensitive. And so like we've got one variable labeled one way here and another way there, and it's going to see it as two different variables, and that's not going to work. And so just and being willing to abandon something for something better, even if it means more work. And I agree with everything Chad said about the grind. I mean, you've got to be willing to grind, and you can't expect an easy payday. This is a little embarrassing, but the very first iteration of the site, we were close to delivery, and Chad says, hey, how does it look on mobile? So I asked my developer, how's it look on mobile? And he goes, we were developing it for mobile.
Oh,
And I was like, are you serious? So 2 weeks from delivery, I spent every waking hour here. I said, you keep working on your stuff. And then I just went back to the beginning and just started redeveloping it for mobile. And so
wow.
I handed Chad a mobile version of the site, and he knew there were times I've got a couch in my office. There are times where I looked at the clock and I go, well, it's if I drive home and back right now, I'm gonna lose 40 minutes of sleep. So I'm just gonna crash on the couch instead and do
Yeah.
an extra 40 minutes so that I could be up first thing in the morning and just keep cranking away. And
Yeah.
you got to be willing to sacrifice like that.
Now that conversation happened about 2 a.m. when I got a phone call and he said, hey, I have something to tell you. And
We laugh about it now.
We laugh about it now.
course.
Yeah, but it was not a laughing moment by any stretch of the imagination.
I can imagine.
No, I mean, I won't say all of the swear words I used at that moment about stupidity and ignorance and lack of foresight and everything else like that. How is this even possible? All of these things.
It was a learning and growing opportunity for
but,
everyone involved.
Again, like I said, you better be hungry. You better be willing to go hungry if you're going to start a business. Otherwise, stay out of it. And, the great ideas are wonderful. Everybody has them, but getting them to fruition requires a lot of hard work, and it will be years of sacrifice most likely before you'll see any success with it.
Absolutely. And to for the audience, like this is the moment that you want to reach at some stage. You are grinding maybe for 6 months, 1 year, and then you're gonna get on the show and you're gonna laugh like Chad and Rob are laughing now, remembering, all, all the hard times. But like really, one of the things, and I keep repeating this, the best way to learn about something is to live it. The best way to learn is actually to face these challenges, to fail, to feel like the world is ending, and then you stand up again and you continue what you were doing, and then you keep moving. So for
Absolutely.
me, for me, like this is it's kind of the podcast is a motivation for me because I speak to folks like yourself, guys, and really uh, enjoyed a lot the story behind all the moments you shared. Where we can find you guys?
So the website is at swyvvl.com, and that's spelled SWYVVL.com. So SWYVVL.com. You can also, because we're very open, especially at this stage, because we love being able to hear the feedback. We love to be able to talk with people that are using the platform. You can check me out at chad@swyvvl.com. You can get a hold of Rob at rob@swyvvl.com. And if you're a real estate agent, you can go to swyvvl.com and then /onboarding in order to be able to get on the platform. We are allowing real estate agents to use the platform for free for a certain amount of time. And for home buyers and home sellers, it's always free. So there's never a cost for them to be able to use the platform on their end of things. Like we said, we would love to hear the feedback. We would love to, we love when people reach out to us and tell us their success stories and how Swyvvl has worked for them. And it really, like we talked about, it's one of those, those multitude of small successes that you have to hang your hat on as you build. And so that's how you get a hold of us. And of course, we're also available on all the different social media platforms, Instagram and YouTube and Facebook and all those other good things.
Great. To all my audience in the US, go check the website. I will put the links that Chad just mentioned in the show notes. So if you're listening on your favorite podcasting app, go and check the website. And if you're watching this, of course, I will put these on YouTube description. Gents, really, I really appreciate it. I know it's so late for you now today. Although, like you just mentioned, you had the discussion at 2 a.m., so I feel now more comfortable. So I don't feel like guilty anymore. But
No,
really,
no, no, no guilt, my friend. If you're going to get into your own business, you better not be able to watch the clock.
absolutely, absolutely. And really, I enjoyed. I learned a lot. And of course, now I'm gonna go and tell my friends who lives in the US to go and check also the website. So
Well, thank you for having us.
no, it's my pleasure. And as I say always, this is how I end my episode. This is for the audience. If you just discovered this podcast by luck or by chance, thank you for passing by. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did so, give me a small favor, share it with your friends and colleagues. As you can see, we get real stories from the real world about people who are building something that matters. So encourage people to listen or to watch. We are available on all podcasting apps and platforms. We are available also on YouTube. And if you are one of the people who keep coming again and again, thank you for all your support, for the feedbacks. Thank you for this is a record. Like now we are in September, and the podcast since Jan never lost position in the top 200 charts in multiple countries. Sometimes we go from a country, but we come back. This cannot happen without you. And thank you very much also for all people who are supporting me by getting their copy of the book From Nowhere to Next, which was released beginning of September. So thank you very much for this. And as I say always, stay tuned for a new episode very soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Hit that subscribe button, share the show with your tech-savvy friends and fellow entrepreneurs, and leave us a review on your favorite podcast app. Your support means the world to us.